Hello, I am an old fart, and I have a guilty pleasure. I like knives. I'm not an official representative of anything or anyone. I just like knives. And I'm leading you on a tour through my collection of small folding pocket knives. Today we're going to have a look at this unit. This is a Chris Reeves small Inkosi, for reasons that we will get to in a second. Probably my favorite knife. So let's talk about the history of acquiring this knife. It basically was inevitable. I had large and small sebenzas, and the Sebenza 25 that I eventually acquired and refurbished, which was the predecessor to the Inkosi, led me to the large Inkosi, which I really liked for its incredibly smooth action and its robust feeling and its casual appearance. And so it seemed like the quality of the large Inkosi, the size of the small sebenza, it seemed like it was pretty obvious that a small Inkosi was something to try. Sorry, I don't have my stuff in the usual brilliantly organized locations here, so my arms are flailing around a lot. And I had experienced micarta on a couple of knives. I liked it, like the comfortable, casual feeling and the fact that it discolors with time and adds a kind of a personal character. Micarta is not a dressy material, but then an Inkosi isn't a dressy knife. So I ordered this. This is the small with the natural canvas inlays. So let's go through a bit of a description. Now again, formally, Chris Reeves knives, a CRK, Inkosi, small sized, right-handed, drop point blade, natural canvas micarta inlays. Those are all choices you can make with Chris Reeves knives. The mechanism is the famous CRK frame lock mechanism. Double-sided thumb stud and incredibly smooth mechanism due to two things: the extremely good machining tolerances and the huge oversized phosphor bronze washers. You can see them in there just poking out beyond the heel of the blade. So enormous washers that spread the friction of the motion out over a large surface, combined with extremely flat, tight machining tolerances, make it just a delight to open and close. Very, very smooth. The thumb studs are the famous or infamous Chris Reeve conical models. They're concentric circles forming a cone. Some people don't like those. I've heard a lot of complaints about them. I do. I find them quite comfortable. I think the thing with the thumb studs is they discourage you from flicking the knife open because you tend to slide off. But Chris Reeve is quite clear on that he doesn't like people flicking his knives open. They're to be opened slowly and deliberately, and I find those thumb studs serve that just fine. And of course, the famous Chris Reeve frame lock. Chris Reeve invented the frame lock, and this is a frame lock done well. It is very large lock coverage. Ceramic ball is actually making contact with the knife in there, so it's not wearing on the titanium. And even though you're opening the knife slowly, you get this wonderful clunk, a really noticeable, secure sounding click as the knife locks open. Watch that lock mechanism. Just beautiful, secure feeling and very satisfying sound. So let's talk about the size a little bit. This is a little knife, and I guess technically it's in the mid-sized class. I'll compare it to a few things. First, the most important reference. It is about 0.9 pocket calculators in length when open. It is, surprisingly, slightly smaller than a small sebenza. And I say surprisingly because, as we'll get to in a second, it's heavier than the small sebenza. So anyway, it's in that class. It is even slightly smaller than the mini Griptilian. So, though it's in the mid-size class of knives, it's on the small end of the mid-size class knives. I like the word compact or little for it. Despite being small-ish, it is a heavy knife. It's 82 grams, so that's more than the small sebenza. It's interesting, it's more than the 940, the Benchmade 940, which is considerably larger, and it's more than the mini Griptilian. So it's heavier than knives I have that are bigger, and that weight is in thickness of materials and in sturdiness. This is a solid, substantial, sturdy knife. A beautiful blade. It's a drop point blade. The blade length is 2.75 inches. You notice it is shorter than the sebenza blade by a bit. 2.75 inches is under the magic 3-inch limit that matters in some places, which is good. And the blade is a slightly different shape than the sebenza. There's a sort of a gentle hump along the back, which exists on the small sebenza but is less pronounced. The blade definitely has a more noticeable hump. And it's quite thick at the back, so it just feels sturdy. It's a blade that can take some use. Like the other Chris Reeve knives, it's a large radius convex grind, so there is a slight curve on the so-called flat part of the blade. It produces nice reflections, and it, they say, aids with the cutting operations by parting the material that you're cutting at a non-linear rate. Quite a large sharpening choil in the blade, not really big enough to use as a choke-up point. That's dangerously close to the live edge, but it certainly makes sharpening easier. And speaking of sharpening, it's S35 VN steel, which sharpens very nicely, not too difficult to sharpen, and reasonably good edge retention. The body is solid titanium, 2 titanium slabs, sandblasted finish everywhere. And the micarta strips, which I think are quite attractive, are inlays. They're sitting inside milled grooves. They're not on the surface. The clip is the same sandblasted titanium as the body, and it also mounts in a recess that's milled into the surface. Good hold. Nothing fancy. It's just bent titanium. Good hold. And what I do like is it is canted so that it is sitting on the body, not on the lock bar. Therefore, it doesn't interfere with the opening and closing of the knife. Unfortunately, shallow carry. I prefer deep carry clips, but this is a shallow, and it does suit the knife so well that I haven't been tempted to replace it. There's no lanyard hole in the knife, but there is a lanyard pin, and it comes with a small fob pre-installed. Now, different from the sebenza, on the sebenza, the lanyard pin is pierced and moves, so the fob can turn freely, which is kind of neat, but the pin rattles. On the Inkosi, the pin is solid. It's more like a pulley surface. There's no rattling there, which I think is a better design. I usually comment on whether the knives are ambidextrous, and sort of yes and no for this one. Yeah, it is very much a single-sided knife. The clip only mounts on one side. And of course, being a frame lock, it is very much designed for use with the right hand. However, there's a fully left-handed version available. So I'd have to say, left-handed people can be fully satisfied. You can get a left-handed knife, but any given knife is not ambidextrous, no. And if you care where they're made, proudly stamped on the side of the frame here is Idaho made, so it is designed and made in the US. So, I've already said that I like this knife a lot. Let's go through the what I like list. This is going to be a long list because I think this might be my overall favorite knife. First is just, pride of ownership. Again, you get a lot of pleasure out of owning a Chris Reeve knife. People who know knives go, wow, a Chris Reeve knife. And it's an Inkosi. The standard Chris Reeve knife, the one that everybody sees and talks about, is, of course, the sebenza. So the Inkosi is a little more rare. It just adds a little bit of extra, flair to the pride of ownership. And as with all Chris Reeve knives, I like the fact that it is subtle. You can just see on the side there the CRK logo Idaho made, and that's it. That's the only writing anywhere on the knife. No markings on the blade or anywhere else. So I like the subtlety of the markings. Of course, the action is incredibly smooth. And something quite nice with this knife, the size, I mean, it is quite compact, and the clip being canted and covering the lock bar means that I don't run into that problem I was having with some other knives of pressing on the lock bar while opening. It just isn't set up that way. So I never have a problem getting it opening smoothly, which is a beautiful thing. The blade is great. I like the shape. It was good and sharp out of the box, paper slicing sharp, not mirror sharp, but probably adequately sharp for the intended use of this knife, which is for fairly heavy use. I eventually wore it down dull through heavy use. And here's my proof. I've got some scratches on the blade, resharpened easily on a KME system, and I took it to about a 6 micron finish. So it's got a bit of a mirror on it now, not a perfect shaving mirror, because it is a working knife. And I think the satin finish on the blade looks very nice. It's almost as nice as the more nearly mirror finish on the sebenza, and it doesn't fingerprint, or at least not as well, not as easily. So I think the blade finish is quite appropriate for this knife. Next thing that I like, and this is kind of a surprise, I actually like the fob on this knife. I don't usually put them on knives. I put one on the sebenza so the pin wouldn't rattle. This is the stock fob that came with it, and I actually like it. It makes getting the knife out of your pocket a little easier. This is a fairly small knife, and it's clipped quite firmly into the pocket, and I just find that the fob has an extra thing to pull on is a nice feature. And I like the fact that the fob pin, or the lanyard pin, is the non-rattling kind. It's a really comfortable knife to hold and cut with. I use this knife a lot. The Inkosi has the dual finger groove design, which quite naturally holds your index and middle finger. It's only a 3-finger grip, but where your pinky wraps around the end of the knife, it's canted there, so there's no hot spot, and it's not uncomfortable, and the pinky just kind of engages with the fob. So I find it comfortable to hold and cut with. Plus the nice feeling of the micarta, which is sort of rough but not uncomfortable. So just a good, comfortable, solid grip feeling. And an overall feeling of robustness on this knife. The thick back of the blade, the heavy mount, the solid lock. Just a knife that you get a feeling of complete confidence with. I don't hesitate to cut things with it, and I'm not worried I'm going to break it. Now, I wouldn't use it to pry open a paint can lid. It's not a pry bar, but it's a sturdy knife and just instills confidence. Like that a lot. And finally, as with all Chris Reeve knives, I like the fact that you can use or service it. And not only can you, but they encourage it. The knife comes with the tools and the instructions and the consumables that you need to service it yourself. So you can keep it in good shape, and you're doing that with their blessing. Of course, Chris Reeve also has their famous spa service. You can send a Chris Reeve knife back to the factory, and for a small fee, they will bring it back to like new. They'll redo the sandblasting, resharpen the blade, change the washers, and anything it needs. And I've heard a lot of people rave about that service. Probably not for me, because I don't live in the United States, and I would have to ship the knife across the border, which is never a good idea. So I'm generally servicing it myself. So what don't I like about the knife? And not very much. I mean, it really does hit all the buttons. One thing I'll comment on is that because of the design and the geometry, there is a threat to my thumb when I start closing. Unlock, start closing. My thumb is in harm's way. Now on some knives, something protects you. There might be a flipper tab or a heel of the blade, but on this knife, no. On this knife, I can close the blade on my thumb, and I've done that. So you have to be careful. 2-step operation. Begin closing, shuffle your fingers around, get out of the way, close it the rest of the way. That's the only complaint I have. So let's go through my knife rating system. We start with the NTGK rating, non-threatening gentleman's knife. Now this knife isn't designed to be a gentleman's knife or non-threatening, but I think it scores quite well actually. So let's go through those things. We'll do non-threatening first, then gentleman's knife. So for non-threatening, I'd say it's actually pretty good. It's a deliberate, slow open knife. So the flying open doesn't scare anybody. Nobody's going to think, switchblade. It's clearly a knife that is being opened manually under control. And being a thumb stud frame lock, you can open it two hands, which is a good idea in front of especially nervous people. So, it's a good size, large enough to be useful, but not threateningly large. It's a pocket knife, not a hunting knife. And I like the fact that it's unadorned. It doesn't have deliberate, tactical looking jagged edges or markings or pictures of goblins on it. So not designed to look threatening. The scales look comfortable, not technical. And the lanyard adds to kind of an informal comfort feeling. Now, the bad news for non-threatening is that you can cut yourself closing it. I've done that. And that's bad for the image, saying, oh, no, this isn't a weapon, it's a tool. Don't be afraid. While bleeding is a bad message. So I'd say for non-threatening, it scores very well, A+. For gentleman's knife, I'm going to give it 2 ratings. In general, it's a premium brand. So, as a gentleman's accessory, a premium brand is a good thing, and it's handsome. That's good. On the bad side, it's not decorative. The scales are canvas, not exotic woods or gold or polished metal. And it's shallow carry, so sticks out of your pocket, including the lanyard. And it's thick and heavy in your pocket, so you certainly notice it weighing down suit pants. I said I'll give it 2 scores, and that is as a gentleman's knife and for wearing to a suit and tie office environment, a B+. But I'd give it an A for Casual Friday. On Casual Friday, when you can wear your Dockers or your jeans into work, then this suits quite well. So anyway, let's say B+. So overall, as an NTGK, I'd call it an A or an A+ on Casual Fridays. Now, how about the KN rating? So Knife Nerd rating. Well, it's going to do well there. Brand recognition, of course, everybody knows Chris Reeve knives and loves them or wants to see one or wants to tell you why you paid too much. Less common model. So people who know Chris Reeve knives have often not handled an Inkosi, so nice to be able to show them that. And then when your knife nerd friend handles it, the action, they go, oh, wow. Just try to get it back. Yeah. Great blade shape, geometry, good steel, remarkably comfortable in the hand, and a robust knife. This is a knife, for that crowd of people who shout, user, user. The people who say, you have no right to collect knives because this knife doesn't look like it's ever been used to fight off a mountain lion or skin a bear. So for those people, this will fool them, that this knife looks like a user. So an A+ for Knife Nerd rating. And finally, the CMR rating, cut myself rating. Well, as I said, I have nicked myself while closing this knife before I realized that I had to be a little more careful. So I'm going to give it a B for CMR. So, in summary, I like this knife. Extraordinary build quality, comfort, sturdy, a great blade. A great compact knife for everyday use. Now, with the sandblasted titanium and the micarta inlays, it's not highly decorative, so it's not a favorite suit and tie knife. But it is a favorite weekend jeans knife when mid-size is needed. And its big brother, the large Inkosi, is my favorite when full size is acceptable. So overall, for my kind of everyday small, this is probably my favorite knife. Thanks for watching. See you again.